Welcome back. It's now time to start our rough cut. And fortunately, because we have built such a strong foundation in the way we've set up our project, the rough cut will go really smoothly. As the name implies, creating a rough cut is not about perfection. We're not adding in all of the little details and the graphics and those spices that make everything extra nice. We're just trying to get a rough idea of what this project is going to look like, how long it's going to be, if there's anything else we need to reshoot or redo. It's very, very rough. We're not worried much about anything else besides just sort of trimming it down, cutting out the stuff we know we don't need, and leaving in everything that we think we might need, and starting to put together the basic structure. In this case, my project was filmed linearly, so it goes from beginning to end, but sometimes you might film something that needs to be moved earlier in a project, or you're working on something that's out of order, and this is where we can start to create that structure for the project. This could obviously look very different for something like a narrative film or a documentary or something like a YouTube tutorial, which is what I'm working on right now, but this is what I have found to be just the quickest way to put your rough cut together. And this is also where those keyboard customizations that we put together last time are gonna start really coming in handy. So here's our project, again, same as it was before. For the rough cut, I'm not really going to pay too much attention to the other camera angles besides the main angle. So I'm gonna press V to deactivate camera 2. We don't really need that. I probably will be jumping into the screen recording just a little bit because it is such a huge part in this video, but typically for rough cuts, I'm mainly focused just on this one shot here. Right now we can see that our total project running time is 31 minutes, 9 seconds, and 12 frames. That's actually pretty short for raw footage for me. Oftentimes it's well over an hour, but that's way longer than I want this video to be. So ultimately I would love it if we could get this under 15 minutes, but I don't know, so the rough cut's gonna give me an idea if that's even possible or not. Generally though, my videos, I like to make them just as long as they need to be, but I don't wanna waste anybody's time. You know, I know that if we're talking about a Final Cut Pro plugin tutorial and somebody sees a 22-minute video versus a 13-minute video, it's probably gonna seem less overwhelming to just watch the 13-minute video. So I try to make them as short and concise as possible, but they end up just being as long as they need to be. The way that I start is to just go through and essentially figure out where the video begins. So after a while, you'll start to be able to read your audio waveforms pretty well. Right here, I can see I have several that look very similar. So what that tells me is this is probably me messing up repeatedly with my starting line. Motion tracking is a really awesome and powerful and fun effect to use in your videos, and motion tracking is a really fun and powerful and just awesome effect to use in your videos, and fortunately in recent years it's become easier and easier to use. Fun effect to use in your videos, and fortunately in this case, I have these 2 takes here where I do the intro of the video and I say what motion tracking is, and it's easy to use. This first take I didn't even finish because I messed up, so I only have one option. This is where the blade all command, if I press B and I get the blade tool, I would normally just be able to cut this, but it's not going to affect the clips above or below. So this is where you can position the playhead where you want it and press Shift Command B to blade all of them, and now it has cut the entire timeline, but that's why we added that shortcut earlier, because now all I have to do is go over here and press the S key, and then these are now separated. And if I wanted to delete everything, I just click on the clip that's on the bottom, press delete, the magnetic timeline snaps everything back to the beginning, and now the video starts. Motion tracking is a really fun and powerful and just awesome effect to use in your videos, and fortunately in recent years, it's become easier and easier to use. Okay, and then there's nothing here, so I'm gonna press S to just kind of go through there, see what this says. So today I'd like to introduce you to how I use motion tracking in my video intros. Now what you saw just right there was an example. Okay, so in between this part here is where I'm going to actually put the intro for this video, which is also the thing that I'm explaining how to make in the video. We're layers deep at this point. So I can just cut out this blank space by pressing S and deleting it. Easier to use. So today I'd like to introduce. Right now I don't care about jump cuts, I don't care about bad audio transitions. If we look between these shots here, the color of the light in the background totally changes. The audio has a kind of a rough cut where you hear me like breathe in a super weird way. That's fine, that's what the rough cut is all about. So I'm going to add in a video intro, but I'm not going to make the intro right now. I'm just going to put in a placeholder. If I go up to generators and I grab a custom generator, I'm just gonna drop that in here. By default, it's 10 seconds long. I know my intro is significantly shorter than 10 seconds. So this is just gonna be a placeholder that tells me I need to come back here later and add in that intro. I made a dumb joke about like the intros and introduce. So, and then I let the awkward silence sit for a second. So I'm going to make sure that I stop this shot where I'm still maintaining eye contact with the camera. I could do the S key and then cut this out. I could also just drag this over and trim it over. Or if I want to really fine tune stuff, you can click on the edge of a clip and then do period or comma to extend that clip. So I can do right to there. There we are. And then I can just move these to match that. Now what you saw, and I can do the opposite here and just press the S key, delete it. And what you saw just right, there we go. And what you saw just right there was an example of what I'm talking about, and it's something that I've been doing for a little bit over a year now, the specific motion tracking thing. You can see all these examples right here. Basically what I try to do in an intro. Right now I added in a marker, and that is the same thing I did last time where I'm just playing through this clip and I pressed the M key when I wanted to mark something, and it added this little marker right here. In the video I say, you can see all these examples right here. You can see all of these examples right here. So I have all these examples of graphics that I want to show, and I'm going to add those in later on as B-roll. But for now, I just need to put a marker there that tells me that's what I need to do. Generally, this is about as far as I go with markers because, like I said before, I'm the one that came up with the video idea, filmed the video, is editing the video. So I know based on what I'm saying in the video that I need to add in those intro things. But if you want to be a little more specific with your markers, you can double click on them and then type in notes what this means, like add intro. And you can also even change it from just being a marker to being a to-do list item or even a chapter if you're working on a long project and you want to sort of change different chapters and stuff. This will be a to-do list item, so I'm going to change that there and click on done. The reason you want to do that is because if I go over to the index, now we'll kind of see everything in the project, but if you click on tags, you will only see some of your markers. Right now there's only one, and I can even go down here further and select to-do items, incomplete to-do items. And I've got add intro right here. So this is telling me at 28 seconds, you need to add intros. And when I'm done with this, I can either check completed or I could even just delete it, but I don't want to delete it. So if you want to get really organized with your markers, you can use the index to do that. Generally, again, as a one-person crew, I kind of just use the marker and I know what it means because it's just me doing everything. Basically, what I try to do in an intro to a video is have an interesting looking shot. Usually it involves the product or whatever I might be talking about in that video. And then I find a place to put my little animated logo in it, where the logo, even though it's a digital thing that's added to a real life video clip, I want to make it look like it actually exists there in real life, like it's really part of the object and it's kind of, pinned there for real and the camera's actually, moving around it. I think that is a really cool looking thing to do. I'm just watching the video and cutting out unnecessary things or mistakes, and this is kind of just the process that we're going to take. Right here, I'm making a bit of an editorial decision. The camera's actually, moving around it. I think that is a really cool looking thing to do. I just think that's a really cool looking effect. And I use a plugin for Final Cut Pro called Motion VFX. Okay, so here this is important because here, originally I just said, I think that is a really cool looking thing to do, which is true, it is. But there's another take. I just think that's a really cool looking effect, and I use a plugin for Final Cut Pro called Motion VFX. That I think is more important because it tells people what the thing I'm going to be using in the video is. And so I'm going to cut out, and at this point, I'm just looking at the audio waveforms and I can tell where the words start around it. I think that I'm not trying to be crazy precise. I'm just going to cut out everything I don't need. Moving around it. And I do this with a plugin for Final Cut Pro from Motion VFX called M-Tracker 3D. This video is not sponsored. I've just been using it for a long time. Like I said, I think it's been about 100 projects at this point that I've used some type of Motion VFX tracking on. And I really like it. And I think I have a pretty good handle on it. So I just want to share that with you. So we've already cut down our project from 31 minutes to 29 minutes. That's pretty significant. You'll find that in the rough cut, things usually move pretty quickly like that, and it gets tougher and tougher as you refine it more and more. And we are 1 minute and 16 seconds into the actual video itself. So we're just gonna kind of keep going through here and see how things go. I know there's nothing here, so I don't need to pay attention to that. Now you can take this idea and apply it to lots of other things You can take this idea and apply it to lots of other things beyond just intro logos. I like to use it in videos if I need to compare to. You can take this idea right here and use it on lots of things beyond just You can take this idea and use it on lots of things beyond. Sometimes it takes a lot of times to get things right. But there we go. Right now I'm selecting this clip. This is 25 seconds. That is all just mistakes that I don't need. When you select a clip, the yellow highlighted time is the amount of the clip you have selected, and then the other time is the total project time. So we'll delete that with you. You can take this idea and use it on lots of things beyond just video intros. I also use it when I need to label multiple things in a scene or even a single. And you can take this idea and use it for things beyond video intros. I like using it when I need to label things in a scene to make it more clear. Like here, for example, I have two cameras that look very similar, but I was able to use the tracker to label both of them, and the titles stay with the camera even though the camera, and the titles stay to label both of them. And the titles stay with the correct camera even though the camera filming them is moving around the shot. So same thing, I added another marker because that's an example shot that I'm going to need to add in later on. So point being, you can take I'll show you one way to do it, but then you can use your creativity and your imagination to let the sky be the limit. It's just that same process over and over again, 1,000 times, of finding where I want to cut, pressing the S key, and then I click on the bottom layer, press delete. That's basically the pattern that I'm using over and over again. The plugin itself is pretty easy to install. I've always kind of struggled with Final Cut plugins in the past, but once you download it, you also get like this application, which is... One thing I should also mention is when you zoom in or out, you'll have to wait for your waveforms to kind of like rescale. And if you're playing and you zoom in or out, you have to kind of stop and let things reload again. Depending on your computer, how long it takes for everything to quickly populate will change. But it's important to remember that if you're not seeing your waveforms or they don't look like they're the right size for how far you're zoomed in, you might need to give the computer a second to like reprocess everything. Just install or uninstall this plugin or any other Motion VFX plugins that you might have also, because they have like a ton of them. Once you do this enough times, you can really start to identify the waveforms more easily. I can see that these, since I'm saying the same words over and over again, these two waveforms look the same, but this one is short and this one is long, so it's a very good indication that this is a mistake. So instead of listening to the whole thing, I kind of just skip to the next one. So now let's get started with an example in Final Cut Pro. I'll recreate what I would normally do for a video intro, and to do that I've actually taken an intro from a previous video. This is my video about the Sony FX3 cage. I'm wearing the exact same shirt. Continuity, even though this was like weeks ago. To do that I've actually taken an intro from a previous video. This is my video about the Sony FX3. I'm gonna just turn on the screen recording here just so I remind myself for a video intro. And to do that I've actually taken an intro from a previous video. This is my video about the Sony video intro, and to do that I've actually taken an intro from a previous video. This is my video about the Sony FX3 cage. I'm wearing the exact same shirt. Continuity. The exact same shirt. Continuity, even though this was like weeks ago. So the role of the intro, beyond just having fun motion tracking, is to sort of be a punctuation mark, for me at least. In my intro, I try to explain what the video is going to be about and also try to include some sort of goofy joke or wordplay. Sometimes it's good and most of the time it's not that good. And then the intro happens and then the actual video starts. And the intro is really short. It's literally like 3 seconds long. And my intro is really, really short. I think it's, and my intro is really short. I don't know why I redid that. Literally like 3 seconds long. So while I'm not focusing too much on changing shots, I haven't even added in our second shot ever. I am, since this is a very screen recording heavy project, I am gonna add in some of the screen recording when I know it's gonna happen for a long period of time, just to make things easier later on. This was my video about the Tilta cage. This was my video about a camera cage for the Sony FX3. I don't know why I repeated that whole thing. Once I've had, this was my video about a camera. I see. I've now had my Sony FX3 for just about a year, and for the past 7 months, I've had a cage for it. So despite all my rage, it's still just a cam in a cage. So this is sort of repetitive, because here I talk about what this video was, but I also did that. So I'm gonna put a marker here. I also did that over here. I've actually taken an intro from a previous video. This is my video about the Sony FX3 cage. I'm wearing the exact same shirt. Continuity, even though this... Okay, so that's where I introduce what that video is, and then here... And this is my video about the Tilta camera cage for the Sony FX3, and basically I've got these two clips. So I don't need to introduce the video again. I can just cut that out. Like 3 seconds long. And basically I've got these two clips starts. And the intro is really short. It's literally like 3 seconds long. And basically I've got these two clips here. This would be the intro and then this would be the part that I don't really like the basically. I think if I said 3 seconds long, I've got these two clips here would make more sense. 3 seconds long. I've got these two clips. Okay, so that's a rough like I've got these 3 seconds long. I've got these. This audio transition is terrible. I don't care. We're gonna leave that there for right now. 3 seconds long. I've got these two clips here. This would be the intro, and then this would be the part that comes after the intro. When I want to cut between the camera angles, I'm just pressing B for blade, and now I am just cutting the one layer, pressing A, clicking on the part I don't want, and pressing V to deactivate it. I don't want to delete it yet. I just don't want to see it right now. Going to go. That's a really dumb, potentially clip. That is a really dumb joke. And then I can cut back here. Go. That is a really dumb joke that was supposed to be a Smashing Pumpkins reference. There we go. And this is basically the process for the entire rough cut. So we are 3 minutes into this video and it's a 26-minute video total. So for the sake of transparency and getting the most benefit, I'm going to continue editing this entire thing in real time. However, if you don't want to sit there and watch me do this for the remaining 26 minutes of the video, skip to this time right here, and then we can kind of catch up when things are finished up and how we're going to prepare to go into the next step, which is going to be kind of polishing and really like digging into the edit of this video. But if you don't want to skip ahead, you can just hang out with me and we can go through this entire project together. The screen recording of Final Cut has its own audio track, which is the audio from Final Cut. So that's what these audio waves are up here on this top track. The track that I'm on, there's no sound from Final Cut Pro, it's just me talking, so I'm leaving this audio up because I want those two to mix together. So when I'm editing the rough cut of a video, what I'll do is where I know the intro is going to go, I will go into my generators in Final Cut Pro. So when I'm editing the rough cut of a video, what I'll do is where I know the intro is going to go, I will go into my generators in Final Cut Pro and take a custom generator and just put that here. The thing that I need though is a clip. I need some sort of shots. So before adding in the clip that I'm going to work with, I actually add in the animated intro. So before even adding in the clip that I'm going to work with, I actually add in the animated intro, the thing that I want to track. In this case, the animated logo is something that I just made in Procreate on the iPad. You can do all kinds of like fun animation stuff there. And this is that video file. So I'll extend the generator. I go to the very last I go to the generator. I go to the very last frame of this animation, shorten it up there. And now the animation is that long. And then I take the generator I made and make it the exact same length as my animation and then delete the animation. The reason I like to do this is because I know now whatever I'm tracking is going to be the exact right length. The reason I like to do this is because now I know whatever clip I end up using is going to be the exact right length to match the logo. So now I just need to find a clip. Usually this is a B-roll shot that I've filmed while recording the video. In this case, I just took a few other examples. Wherever I'm deciding right now that I want to cut to the screen recording, that's not set in stone, like right here. While recording the video, in this case, this almost seems like kind of an awkward spot to cut to it because I'm sort of looking away from the camera, but I'm not looking at the computer, so I could come back later and extend this or shorten it or totally change it. This is all, again, very rough. We're not sticking to any of these decisions totally permanently yet. What I look for in a good clip is that there's a dominant subject. It's usually the subject of the video, and that there's some camera movement. So this one is great because there's a lot of contrast between the microphone and the background, and the microphone also has really clear lines, which will make it easy to track and also easy to kind of align and adjust the logo with. The camera sensor would be fun too, but I think the mic is going to be more fun, so we'll just do that. This clip is way longer than I need it to be, so I just find a part that I think will look good, kind of like this part here. It's not really super scientific. And then I just shorten that there. It's at this point that I'll add any color correction or effects to that clip. So I have a little preset, any color correction or effects to that clip. So I have a little preset that I had made to just sort of pop the colors a little bit. And that's pretty much it in this case. The one thing not to do is to add stabilization in Final Cut Pro. I do add a lot of stabilization normally to my B-roll clips, but not on the intro because the Final Cut stabilizer and the Motion VFX tracker will start to fight each other a little bit and you might not get the best results. So I don't use stabilization on here. If I did want this clip to be longer, I always try to avoid having in these long breaths. By the time I cut them out, it's literally like a minute or two of just me breathing in a video, and people don't. I like breathing, it's a thing that I enjoy, but people don't need to hear me do it, so we'll just get rid of that. Use stabilization on here. If I did want this clip to be longer, like to start here and then have the logo come in later, I'll just cut the clip. The reason I keep stopping it really quickly is so that the audio waveforms can like pick back up and repopulate. I know it's sort of weird when you're listening and it starts and stops, but that's why I'm doing that. It's not a glitch. I'll just cut the clip here and then I'll only track this part and not this part. So if you wanted to do that, you could do that. But now that we've got our clip, so basically the intro is going to look something like this. Still just a cam in a cage. Then there'll be the logo, even though and then it comes back to me talking. I did like, intentionally, I left this little awkward sound of the camera cage clicking. Because this is such a bad joke, the dead silence with no music is something that I think helps. Just a cam in a cage. And the awkward clanky sound from the camera cage, I think is a fun punctuation mark. And then we jump into the logo. I do like to use sort of a, into the logo. I do like to use sort of a J cut in this situation. So if you didn't know this, in Final Cut Pro, when you have a clip with audio, you can double click on the audio and it will break those apart, but it's not actually detaching the audio. And so I'm going to select the edge of the video and then just press the comma key a few times to nudge it over. And now you'll see the audio is going to start while the shot of the intro is still playing. So that's how I would add in audio. And now we can get to the tracking. Don't worry. Don't worry, I haven't lost track of what this video is about. Basically, once you install the mTracker 3D plugin, when you click on your effects panel and you scroll down, you'll see it right there, mTracker 3D, and then you just take that and drag that on top of your clip. And then you'll get this little window up here in the inspector. You have a few options, it says free and show hints. Hints are kind of nice. It's the stuff that's on screen that tells you what you're doing and how to do it. Even though I've been using it forever, I leave it. Generally, you can just click track, and then you just wait for it to track. And then you just wait for it to track. How long this takes is going to depend on how long your clip is and also how complex the movement and the tracking needs to be. So in this case, definitely want to get rid of this little mouth click here. So in this case, it was successful and I can just click now on copy track, and now it has copied all that tracking information. Sometimes you might get an error that says unable to track. Sometimes you might get some information. all that tracking information. Sometimes you might get an error that says it was unable to track, and if that happens, all you need to do is change movement from free to tripod. It probably just means there wasn't quite enough movement among all the different axes to track effectively, and if you click it to tripod mode, it sort of reduces that and does a more simple track, and then it usually works really well. But I try to start with the free track because that gives you the most info and the most dynamic tracking. Now that we've got our track, the thing to do is to go into the titles in Final Cut Pro, and you'll see you're going to have an MTracker 3D title, along with anything else. I have a lot of other motion title, along with anything else. I have a lot of other motion VFX stuff, so those are here, but here's MTracker 3D. There's all kinds of different ones that will do all kinds of different things. The one that I use, since I'm just adding in, there's all kinds of different ones. 3D, there's all 3D. There's all kinds of different ones if you just want to do titles, whatever. But since I'm adding in an existing animated clip, a logo, I'm going to go down here to Drop Zone Basic. And I'm just going to bring this down here, and it's just going to look like a normal Final Cut Pro title. I'm just going to shorten this up, and then I'll just shorten this up to the length of Cut Pro title. And then I'll just shorten this up to the length of the clip. Click on that, go over to the title section. Instead of the normal text thing that I would see in a title, we're going to see the MTracker stuff, and I'm going to paste the track. And it'll say data pasted, and it'll say track. I'm going to paste the track. And it'll say tracking saved successfully. And now if I through this, you'll see it's kind of moving a little bit. It doesn't look perfect, and the scale's all weird, and my logo's not there, but we'll get to all of that. So the first thing that I then like to do is click this little crosshair, and then this is where you can click on what you actually want your tracking point to be. So you can click on anything in your scene, and because we were using that free tracking, it actually tilts it to look, what would make sense based on, it actually tilts it using that free tracking. It actually transforms even though object to whatever. It actually transforms even though object to whatever would make sense based on like the coordinates of that specific point in the frame. I am talking about a lot of stuff on screen that's really small, like this little part of the frame. I will be cropping in and zooming in on all of that later, and we'll walk through that in the next section. For now, though, I'm not doing anything. Everything's just the full widescreen. So if you're watching that and you're like, no one's going to be able to see that, don't worry. We will address that and make it as visually accessible as possible. But right now, again, rough cut. We're not too worried about that. The more contrast you can have, so like in this case, the logo, the Sennheiser logo on the microphone is in this case, contrast you can have. So you might notice sometimes I'm even piecing together sentences, like the beginning of this sentence and the ending of this thing over here. The more contrast you can have, in this case, it sounds super unnatural, but we'll be sure to take care of that later on. Black of the microphone was a good thing to track. It's a very clear point that's easy to follow. And now when I play back, you can see the little box stays pretty solidly on the microphone. Now we can adjust things. If we scroll down here, you have all kinds of options for whatever you have just dropped in there. This menu is going to change depending on which kind of tracker you're using, but this is what the basic drop zone looks like. I'm also using the arrow keys, the forward and backward keys, to sometimes move the playhead by 1 or 2 frames before making the cut if I know like I want to get something really, really precise. To get the length of the clip correct. Since I already added my logo to the timeline earlier to get the length of the clip correct, it's already in my media library, so I just edge over to the very first frame and then click Apply Clip. And now I've got my logo in the scene, and the timing should, even though match up perfectly. Except the problem is the logo's too small and there's a giant black box around it. So let's take care of those things. Again, we don't need this audio. So now we're 12 minutes and 7 seconds into the runtime of this video. The total time has gone down 21 minutes, so we've already cut out 10 minutes, which is great. If I zoom out a bit, you can kind of see we can sort of see our progress. This half over here, we've already gone through and done a rough cut for, and then this remaining part here, we still have yet to do. I kind of thought this would be a fun video to do for this course because this is a neat technique, and I guess you could just watch this video, but by nature of seeing me edit this video, you're going to learn how to do this technique, and since you're editing in Final Cut Pro, maybe it's something you would want to do at some point too, so it's like, it's almost like a bonus, like a bonus lesson on top of the main things. That was my logic, at least. Giant black box around it. So let's take care of those things. The reason I have the logo on a black background is because you can go change the drop zone blend mode from normal to add, and then it will get rid of that, almost like chroma keying it out. And now I just have my logo floating. It's way too small to even read, so I'm going to scale it up. You can use these content position, rotation, and scale options to change things. There are even keyframes, but I don't usually go that crazy with it. So I'm going to scale this up a little bit, or a lot of bit, I guess. And then I'm going to change the positions to where I would want it. Normally I would probably do something kind of like this, where it's right on the edge of the microphone. There's kind of a thing that you always have to figure out, which is how much blank space do you want? So right here, I'm not saying anything, a little bit. But I kind of think it's important to see the adjustments that I'm making. Same thing with the end of certain sentences and certain points. Sometimes you kind of need some pacing. Generally, my videos that are tutorials and reviews have very little dead space and silence because I just don't want to waste anybody's time. But that is a very stylistic, personal choice to make, and it's really going to depend on the project that you're working on. A narrative film that has no moments of silence or pauses is going to feel very, very strange versus one that actually like lets things breathe sometimes. So very important to remember that the pacing and the tone of your project are going to be dictated by whatever the project happens to be about. In this case, I am keeping in mind that the person watching this, they came to see a tutorial to learn how to do something specific, maybe hear a couple silly jokes along the way, and I want to make sure that that's what I deliver on. I'm also fairly certain that I'm going to be having background music behind this video, so that's going to help cover up some of those awkward silences and the times where it's just silence on screen, but you still hear me like breathing or making a weird mouth noise, and I don't want the audio to just clearly drop out and it's too quiet. So as I'm editing, I'm thinking, yes, this is probably a video that I'll be adding background music into, but we just haven't gotten there yet, haven't done that yet. Just a little. I found that by tilting things or moving things a little bit so that they don't look so perfect, then it looks more like an object in the scene and less like a graphic that's just been pasted on top of something. You could even go crazy. You could even go crazy on top of something. You could even go crazy and do like a 90-degree transformation and then move this over so now we can make it look like the logo is sitting on the side of the microphone here. Something like that. Now, like I said, you do have more options. If you're changing the drop zone settings, this is the actual whole thing that you have. It's like the box that you have placed that you're adding your content to. If you're just changing the content, that is the clip or the media. This could be a still image, whatever you've added to that, that's what you're adjusting there. So the drop zone itself, you can change, the opacity of that. We change the blend mode. We can change the scale of the whole thing. We can also move that around a little bit. You even have some blending options like noise and blur. You can go in and play with colorization and shadows. So this gets really powerful and pretty impressive depending on what you need to make. But in general, I'm just either working with clear PNG images or an animated logo on a black background, and that is pretty much it. Now, if I did want to add something else to this same shot, like in the example I showed earlier with the two cameras and there were two different things being tracked, we wouldn't want to do it with the same thing, so we would actually add in another drop zone or another title if we wanted to. The plugin itself does come with some examples, but if you wanted to The plugin itself does come with some examples. Some of them are helpful, some of them are just kind of silly. I'm just gonna pick this robot, I guess. But if you wanted to add another one, you would just click on your main clip, copy the tracking info, and then just paste that tracking info. But if you wanted to add another one, you would just click on your main clip, copy the tracking info, and then just paste that tracking info over there again. Now what you don't want to do is then start moving things around and shifting these around or cutting your clip, because basically what you're doing is you're altering all the tracking info, and then you might find stuff isn't matching up the way that you want to. So that's why I take the time to make sure everything is timed perfectly and positioned perfectly before I start adding the tracking to it. I know that's a lot to keep track of, but you don't want to cause commotion with motion VFX. So to add a second thing, I'm just going to drag this robot down here, extend it over to the same. Okay. I had talked about the robot here. The plugin itself does. I might delete this and move this over a little bit if we wanted to. But if you wanted to add another one, you would just click on your main clip, copy the tracking info, and then just paste that tracking to it. The plugin itself does come with some examples. Some of them are helpful, some of them are just kind of silly. I'm just gonna pick this robot, I guess. So to add a second thing, I'm just going to drag this robot down here. I probably don't need this. VFX. So to add a second thing, I'm just going to drag this robot down here, extend it over to the same length, go to my main clip, copy the tracking info, and then just paste that tracking info back to the robot. And now I have him also being even tracked here. This looks so stupid. And we'll just position him somewhere else. Right here. So again, my goal here isn't to show you every possibility and every nuanced feature of this, but just to show you how I use the Motion VFX M-Tracker 3D to create my video intros. Final Cut Pro does now have its own built-in tracker, which is really, really cool. But the reason I use this extra paid plugin instead of the free built-in tracker with Final Cut is because it is significantly more fully featured and has a lot more flexibility. The Final Cut Pro one can be excellent, and I'm sure it's only going to continue to get better over time. But this has been around for a number of years already, so it's pretty fully developed and pretty fleshed out, and it works really, really well. And because of that, and speaking of, okay. So now we're at the ending of the video. This is the point where if you skipped ahead, welcome back. We had so much fun as we went through it. Actually, I had a ton of fun. I hope you did too. It's always interesting, I think, even without having to directly explain everything, if you just sit next to someone while they do something, you're going to learn something from them. So I hope you picked up maybe some tips and techniques just from watching me do the rough cut of this project. I wanted to explain a few things though about how I wrap up this kind of a video before we move into the next section. And so I'm talking on camera here, and because of that, it's become a really, I want to use this clip, and it works really, really well. And because of that, it's become a really great way to add a pop of style to my videos, along with a fun, creative challenge in every video that I make. And speaking of things that are fun and creative, something I like to do with my YouTube videos is at the end of the videos, I like to thank all of my channel supporters, the people who have channel memberships and Patreons, and I like to recommend another video for somebody to watch. And I always like doing a goofy way by whatever I say at the end of the video. So if I talk about something like, here is a thing that is really good at X, Y, and Z, and speaking of things that are good at X, Y, and Z, thank you to everyone who helps support my channel through Patreon. It's just like, it's the worst transition in the world, but it's really funny to me, so I do that in every video, and that's what this is, video that I make. And speaking of things, so I'm going to cut this right here. Now the outro of the video, I don't need any of these other tracks, just the main camera angle. To everyone who helps support my channel through Patreon and YouTube channel. And actually, I don't even need this visual, I just need the audio, but I want to keep track of this space. So instead of detaching the audio, if you ever do want to detach your audio, you can right click on a clip and click on detach audio. And now I've got our audio separate from that clip. But I don't need to do that right now. Instead, I'm going to change the opacity of this clip all the way to 0. So now it is just black, but thank you to everyone who helps support my channel. We still hear the audio from that clip. Patreon and YouTube channel memberships. Take that out there. And if you're looking for a few more ways to level, and if you're looking for a few more ways to help progress your Final Cut Pro skill set, check out these videos right here. There we go. What's this? And if you're looking for a few more ways to become the Final Cut Pro, check out these tutorials right here. So I have a couple of options here. I have, if you want to become the Final Cut Pro, or if you want to progress your pros, what did I say? And if you're looking for a few more ways to help progress your Final Cut Pro skill set, check out these videos right here. And if you're looking for a few more ways to become the Final Cut Pro, check out these tutorials right here. This is like better. It's better written and performed. This is dumber and kind of sloppier. And I like that one, so I'm gonna go with that one. And the rest of this, I don't think is anything. Now this is not going to be black video in the finished product. It's going to have the channel supporter names, and it's also going to have just video clips underneath that and video clips underneath the end screen that I'll add when I upload it to YouTube that has other video links to click on. So for right now, what I'm going to do, since I know this is going to be part of an end screen on YouTube, is I'm going to bring down another generator. I'm going to right click on it and change the duration to 20 seconds by typing in 2000 and hitting return. And now this is 20 seconds because in YouTube, your end screen on a video is 20 seconds long. I'm gonna press V to deactivate that. I don't need this generator. I just am using it to tell me this is how long the call to action is going to be at the end of the video. And what I'll probably do is have a song playing here. I stop talking, the volume of the song will probably go up and then end at the end of the video. I'm also going to add in something here. So I have an animated subscribe thing that I made. It's kind of the same as the logo that I've been talking about in the video I'm editing. And those assets that I use in every video, and even some of the background songs that I use more often than once, I just sort of keep those in a special folder on my computer all the time so I can always come back to them without having to go to an external drive or anything. So I have this little animated clip right here that says subscribe and goes over there. And what I'm going to do is reposition that because it's sort of in an awkward spot. And when I wrote it out, it's crooked. So I know because I've done this many times, I need to rotate it by -1 degree. And then I just click the transform box and put it down here in the corner. And then in YouTube Studio right here, I can add in a little icon that will let people click to subscribe to the channel. The problem I'm having here though is that this is only this long, but we need it to be that long. So what I can do is find a part in this clip where the animation is complete, click on the clip and press Shift H, and that's gonna create a hold frame, which is basically a freeze frame. You can do that on any clip. So if I go back here where I'm talking and I press Shift H, it's going to create a freeze frame. To add a pop of style. And then this is also these other ones that are normal. This is where you can also adjust clip speed and playback and all kinds of stuff. We'll be talking about that as we go into the regular editing. We're gonna leave that alone for right now. We don't need a freeze frame right there. But now I can just drag the orange hold section all the way past this and then bring this back here. And now this subscribe thing will be there the entire time at the end. The other thing I need to change is put this to an add blend mode. And what that means is when I have something below it, it will be on top of it. It won't just be the black screen that it was normally. So this is what that clip looks like. Change the blend mode to add. It does kind of desaturate the colors a little bit, but I don't really care. The other reason I turn this opacity to 0 on these clips is because the B-roll footage that I will eventually add under here, I also turn that down quite a bit, usually to like 25% or even less. And the reason for that is when I put the channel supporter names up on screen, it's very hard to read the text if it's over a fully bright shot. Like you can't read the names, you can't see what I'm saying. So I dim this down and it makes it a little darker. If this bottom clip were still there and I reduce the opacity of this, it's not going to make things darker. It's just going to add like a weird looking filter over the other clip. So that's why down here, I turn this all the way down, because if I just pressed V, it would do the same thing by disabling the clip, but it would also disable the audio. And I want to keep the audio. There's a bunch of ways to achieve this, but this is the fastest, simplest one. We'll get rid of that generator. So now we've got our rough cut done, and one thing I'm really happy about is our total project length is 16 minutes and 56 seconds and 2 frames, down from 31 minutes. So I don't know if we're going to be able to cut out another like 2+ minutes to go under the 15-minute mark that I was hoping for, but this is really, really good. And now I feel confident that the video, I always get nervous after I make a video and record something that I didn't get enough footage, that's not going to work right. I'm confident the video has what it takes to be good, and now it just needs to be polished up, and we need to spend time fine-tuning everything. So here's where we're going to do something very, very important, and that is nothing at all. And what I mean is, this is when, if possible, I strongly recommend that you take a break. Sometimes when you're editing and you get through the rough cut and now we see our project is here and it's looking good and it's all coming together, we just want to kind of keep going and keep diving in. But you get exhausted. I'm tired. This was a lot of work and I'm mentally pretty tired right now. And if I were to start editing, I'm not going to be probably making the best creative decisions. I'm not going to be going that extra mile. And when there's the option to, spend a little more time adding a little polish to something, I might be less motivated to do that because I am tired and fatigued. I might be forgetting the project because I've heard it a bunch of times and I've gone back and forth. And the best thing I found to do, and it took me a couple years to learn this, was to stop, leave, and come back like the next day with a fresh set of eyes and a fresh perspective and new energy. Now, of course, deadlines and things can affect whether you're able to just leave for a day, but I am literally going to stop working on this for today, and I'm going to come back tomorrow, and that's when we're going to dive into the polished editing part. Of course, in your case, you could just watch that part right now because time is a mental construct in this world, and you can just jump into my future and my past simultaneously. We don't need to get this deep in this course. Point being, this is why I need to take a break. And then when I come back tomorrow, I'll be really excited to dive back into this project and make it as good as it can possibly be. So that's what we're going to do next, is all of the polishing, fine-tuning, turn this rough cut into a final cut.